Welcome to another Perspectives podcast. It's Josue here again. Nice to have you guys on. I am a fellow believer, as you guys know by now, from the Democratic Republic of Congo, former Oral Roberts University graduate, speaker, preacher, as they like to call it. We'll talk about that later. And I have the man himself here, Mr. Chase Brown.
Yeah.
He's a traveler. He loves taking notes. Walking, running, working out, good things. He attended North Texas University. Shout out to UNT. You guys are what, the Eagles? The Green Eagles?
Eagles, Mean Green.
Mean Green, I say
things
Green
like
Eagles.
that.
I'm sorry. He's an aspiring philanthropic creative. I'm finally getting that one down, but man, how are you doing, sir?
Bruh, I'm good. And I do just want to make a correction.
Yes.
I don't like running.
Okay, yes, he doesn't. That was a slip of the tongue. He does not like running.
I just have to do it.
Yeah.
You know, Grayson, our friend who we've had on the podcast, our director of fundraising, he's, as we talked about before the show, trying to get me to do a half triathlon.
I don't know why he doesn't love you. I don't know.
I don't know, man. I feel like I've done good to him in our friendship so far.
I would have thought so too,
but he's trying to put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, I don't know, but it's but to answer your question, it is good. This last couple weeks of quarantine, everything like that has been good. Work's been good. Man, just been able to really read a lot. Continue to do that, which has been so good. I've been going through. Started in 1 Timothy about 2 months ago, and I'm up to. I just got done with 2 Peter today. But yeah, man, it's been so good.
Yeah.
But how are you doing, man?
I'm good, man. The same thing, man. I'm for those of you guys that don't know, I don't like reading that much. Someone was like, "Well, don't you read the Bible?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's the only book I read." But I started reading this book. It's called, I believe it's Learning from Rabbi Jesus or something. Reading the Bible with Rabbi Jesus. So there's like that perspective, you know, from Israel and all that, because that's where the author studied. And so I've been reading that book and really just seeing a lot of different things in the Word that I didn't even know were there. So it's been very interesting. But yeah, just reading that, going through the Old Testament, seeing different things that I was like, wow, I didn't even know this was here. You know, so a lot of things like that. But yeah, like you said, the quarantine has gone by. It's almost done.
Yeah,
I hope it doesn't come back.
Get away, bro.
Yeah. So that's some of the stuff we're doing. But what are we here to talk about today?
Yeah, man. I'm really excited because it's something I've wanted to talk with you about for a while. We thought about having this conversation with our boy Montel.
Yeah.
Since y'all were down there at the same time.
Yeah, that's true.
But he been running around, putting out a lot of new music. Doing things for his brand, and so. I want to sit down, just have this conversation with you about the Brazil trip.
Oh, man.
Y'all who are listeners, frequent listeners, know that we released some podcasts from his time down in Brazil. And so that was some of what Josue was doing down there, but there was a lot more to the trip. And just like we did with my Alps trip. Probably like 20 episodes ago now, something like that. I just wanted to bring you on to really be able to have you just share really what the trip was about, share how the Lord grew your perspective through it, just lessons that you learned that you would like to share with others, and then just give them any sort of inspiration and things like that, whether it's to go down to Brazil or just travel once this whole quarantine is over in general. But you just want to open up with just kind of what the trip was like, like either what it was like going into it and just what you did on the trip.
Man, I don't even know where to start. So I'll start with how I even ended up going on the trip. For the longest time, I always wanted to go to Brazil. I don't even know why, but I feel like that's one of those places where people want to go. So I always wanted to go to Brazil. And so I actually have two of the guys that I recorded with, Isaac and Samuel. They're missionaries currently down in Brazil. The Lord called them over there, so that's kind of where they are. And so I spoke with Isaac, I want to say around December of last year. And just jokingly, I was like, hey, I want to come to Brazil. Because he finally moved to Brazil. Because before he'll kind of go back and forth, he finally moved there. And he was like, bro, you should come. You can stay with me. We'll hang out. I'll show you around, blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, I'll come. And then he said, for those of you guys that are not familiar, there was a conference that's called Descend. Dunamis, Dunamis movement. They kind of help put that together with a lot of big leaders within the body of Christ, just to kind of preach more about the gospel and really just pray for people and really impart grace to be able to send people out and all these different things, great things. There's a lot of great numbers that came from that conference. So that conference was going to happen. He was like, bro, you should come. Some of our friends from ORU are also going to be there. So all of you guys should come at the same time.
And Montel was down there.
Yeah. and I told him, yeah, I'll show up. And then I was like, okay, I need to stop making promises that I can't keep. So let me actually make this happen. And I have one of my friends, my brother in the Christ. He hooked it up with the American Airlines tickets.
You want to give him a shout out?
Shout out to Mr. Joshua.
There we go.
Appreciate you, sir. Thank you for all your ministry, your hard work. He hooked me up with those tickets, and I was like, wow, now I really have to go. And so I put in my week of vacation at work, and I bought tickets to Brazil. And I remember it took me about 10 hours to get there. 10 hours to get there. I drove. I flew there. We're not going to edit that part out, but it's there. I flew there and I get there. And it was just beautiful, man. I don't even know how to describe it, but we'll talk more. But I mean, I get there, I get to the airport. It wasn't Dallas or anything. Mm-hmm. It was somewhere completely different. Yep. And it just felt like something completely different, something good. I guess I'm starting to become weird in a way, in the sense that, similar to Chase, I want to travel places where I don't really understand the language. I don't know what's going on. Yep. Kind of just trusting God, but like, all right, what's going to happen here? So, man, that's how I ended up going to Brazil. I want to give a shout out to Nicole Lee. She's also a Brazilian friend that lives here. Yeah. She ended up helping me out to where I was able to stay with her best friend in Brazil, Pedro and Matthias. Yeah. Those were their roommates, and man, I didn't know those guys from the next person you might see on the street, but they welcomed me with open arms. I get there, they had a bed set up for me, and throughout my time there, they were just asking me questions about just life. I'm asking them questions because I want to learn and understand the culture, know. So I didn't stay in a fancy hotel or anything like that, but where I stayed was great because I was able to learn so much more, and just to see people that welcomed me without even knowing me, off of the word of a friend. So I want to thank once again Nicole Lee. Thank you. Thank Pedro and Matthias. I thank you guys. I appreciate you guys. So yeah.
Yeah, it's so good, man. And yeah, as far as the language stuff goes, I mean, you brought that up before we started recording, and yeah, I love it too because I mean, I think we could just see from our time over in China, like it's something that us as English speakers, I mean, we're blessed whenever we go around because inevitably there's someone who speaks English. I mean, shout out to my boy Jack Chen, the boy from Taiwan who was there up in Beijing.
I remember him. Yeah,
like it's crazy, and they're just so generous and so welcoming and everything like that. And it definitely is something where you have to just step out in faith and trust the Lord, and then from there, He's able to respond in a way with people's kindness and generosity, everything like that. But I wanted to get into this, thinking about it. How would you say the bond, because you talked about with meeting new people and being able to as well see people that you've known. Yeah. How did those friendships like grow? How are they right now? Like, is it something where like y'all still are able to talk a little bit, or is it something where like y'all are friends for life now? If you go down there next time, you'll be able to see like Matthias and all them.
Yeah, for sure, man. So I'll speak to the ones that I already knew from school, back from ORU. So that's Isaac and Isaac and Zach.
Or Zach,
sorry. Isaac and Samuel, the same person. So I apologize, Samuel and Zach. So there's the ones that I already knew, and so being able to connect with them. I also met up with Caleb and Neftali, which we recorded with. But Samuel and Isaac are still there in Brazil. It was just it was great, man. It was great being able to spend time with them because I haven't seen those guys in years because I graduated a little bit before they did. So a lot of years went by before I was able to see them again. And now you kind of just feel like there's like a special bond, I guess you could say, when you go see somebody in another country. You're kind of just trusting your time there. You're trusting that they're going to give you all the best food tips. They're going to show you all the cool places to go, give you sound advice, and just even the conversations that you leave with. I had a very deep conversation with Zach about just trusting the Lord. A lot of the things that he shared on the podcast, I had that conversation with him because he was challenging me as a brother in the faith about sometimes you just got to step out and trust God, even when things don't make sense, especially like finance and all that stuff. I had conversation with Samuel, and Samuel is just one of those social butterflies. That's the best way to describe him. And so through him, I was able to meet a lot of different people, even Brazilians that I'm still keeping in contact with, because they went to a church called Zion Church. And so I went to one of the young adults event. We could talk about that later. But through that, I was able to meet people. And I do apologize. I have a friend, Cassia. She's also there in Brazil. And
many friends.
I know. But I got to hang out with her, and it was... So I met her here in the States because she came... she was doing a mission trip in the United States, actually. They were going around preaching. And she came to one of my small groups once, and we've been able to stay in contact for like 3 years. And then I was actually, when I went to Brazil, I got to hang out with her and her church family. So I was able to meet a lot of people through that as well. But speaking towards Pedro and Matthias, I mean, I thought it was crazy because Matthias and I still talk on WhatsApp to this day. Just we're speaking about this Corona stuff and just how all that is going. But I feel like it's definitely, you build these friendships, these relationships, and they really just continue, to be honest. So
yeah. And it's something because like with my friend Matthias that we had on the podcast from Norway, like it's crazy because me and him still talk a lot. The buddy Dennis from Austria, who we've thought about having on, like me and him talk frequently, and I met them over in the Alps on that trip. And it's something that I definitely think like there's this bond that's created whenever both of the friends, like both of the people are intentionally like serving the Lord, whether it's a mission trip or whether it's even a trip like this, that you're just going there just to deepen your relationship with the Lord and then just see friends. But then honor the Lord in conversation and things like that. And as well, for you grow a little bit deeper, I think, with them because you're in a little bit of like an unknown environment and it opens up more sides of you. And it's something that I definitely think is a little bit more memorable because it's not something that's kind of in the everyday. That it opens you up to really just connecting and sticking with those people, everything like that. And I love that you got like to experience that. Because I know that going into it, you were hyped about it and hyped about being able to see those people, have those conversations. And like, it's so good. And kind of one of the things, I guess, since you brought up the send, is it could either be at that day or something that God's spoke to you about related to it, like later on. But maybe what was some of the things that God was speaking to you, like during that day, during that event, everything like that?
Man, so I got there on the 8th, I believe, which was a Saturday, and that was when the sand was going on. And so even for me getting to one airport to the other airport where my friend Casey and her family, Kezia, came and picked me up. That was even a journey. And so I hung out with them for a couple of hours. So the sand started about 10 a.m. I didn't get there until about 5, maybe 6 p.m. because apparently I didn't know this. Someone should have told me. But during the time where I went to Brazil, it was, I guess, was that summertime? Is that what they said? I believe it was. But it rains every day around like 4 or 5.
Rainy season.
And so I was like, what's going on? I was wanting to go, and I remember her saying, hey, you don't want to leave here. I'm like, why not? She was like, it's going to rain. I'm like, I don't see any rain coming down. And sure enough, a couple minutes later, rain came down. I was like, man, she must be a prophet. But no, I mean, going to the sin, I remember walking in the stadium. Shout out to Samuel for hooking me up with a ticket because your boy definitely forgot to buy his ticket. Let's not talk about that. But yeah, so I remember getting there and walking to where they were seated. And I finally sit down and I see Neff, I see Caleb, I see Samuel, because actually Neff came and get me. And I'm sitting down and I'm just observing. I'm like, wow, oh my God, this is incredible. So I'm in a stadium with probably about maybe 70 plus thousand people.
Yep.
And it turns out, I didn't find out until later, but the average age range was about maybe 22. I didn't know that. So it was a bunch of young adults that were there just representing Christ. Being able to see that, I have multiple pictures where they're almost breathtaking. I took it on my cell phone. I was like, this is a multitude of people that are just hungry for Christ and they're just here. And it was humbling because I don't understand Portuguese. So a couple of times whenever they were speaking Portuguese and they didn't have anyone translating, I was just sitting back like, what's going on? But the awesome thing is, Samuel, I don't know how he did it, but he learned Portuguese in less than like 6 months. I don't know how he did it. It's amazing. So he was translating, for me. And that was so cool. Like having one of your friends who originally didn't speak Portuguese translate for you in English. I mean, that was such an awesome experience. But yeah, just seeing that for me was like, I was able to sit back and say, man, no one knows who I am here. I definitely don't have to pretend to be anybody. Let me just worship, let me just worship, and seeing how passionate the Brazilian people were when it came time to worshiping God. I mean, that was a sight. And that was a sight to see for sure, and so, and even just whenever our English, because they had Francis Chander, Todd, and different people. I didn't get to see all of them because I showed up late, of course. Yeah. But whenever they had Stephanie Gretzinger and Jeremy Riddle, they came towards the end and they were doing like King of My Heart and different things like that. Just being able to see them worship in English, but then I realized a lot of them didn't speak English. So it's just one of those things where, as people, you could sing a song in Spanish even though you don't know Spanish because you're just listening to the words, right? But it was cool that they also had people on the stage that would sing, their own artists that would sing those same songs in Portuguese. So I mean, it was a sight to see, man, and just, I don't know, it was such a, like, that's the best way I can describe it. And just seeing that and just knowing that one day we're going to be doing that, just worshiping God like that continuously, so yeah.
Yeah, and it's so good because like for me, whenever I went to China, like my kind of like wow moment was at the Great Wall. Like whenever I got up there at the top, I got goosebumps. I was like, wait, like I'm 26 years old.
Yeah.
Actually, no, I was 25 at the time. Jeez. I was 25 years old and I was like, wow, like this is happening.
Yeah.
And this is like, Lord, like, thank you. Like the fact that I'm able to actually just be here and actually just sit and experience this is like so cool. Because not a lot of people get to do that. Like I'm sure the amount of Americans that were in that stadium were very small.
Very small.
Yeah.
Very, very small.
And so, but something I love that you brought up that I want to see potentially how it impacted you, because you brought up just the hunger that the Brazilian church has for like worship and the presence of God. And during this quarantine, I don't know if you've seen any pictures like from down in Brazil, but I mean, like the worship and everything that's just been happening, like in the streets, like on people's balconies and everything like that.
Yes,
has been amazing. And so for you, I guess, since coming home, has that, like seeing that and seeing just believers around the world have a hunger for the presence of God, like has that inspired you in any way?
Man, of course. I feel like this is something we've talked about, how you could see God in people in different ways, right? It's kind of, we all come together to make up a body, but we're also individual members of one another, like it says in Romans 12. So just seeing how they worship God was like, man, because then when I come back to America and I'm thinking about maybe a young adult service that we may have here at a church service where, I mean, this is definitely no judgment by any stretch of imagination. I'm just looking at a comparison where during a worship service, some people like you're sitting down. Some people look angry. Some people have their arms crossed. Some people just look disengaged. Let's use the word disengaged.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas over there, I really just saw everyone engaged. So that's probably the best way. I mean, it's okay if you have your arms crossed, you're not raising your hands. That's totally cool. But I'm just saying, for example, here I might have seen people were disengaged. Over there, it seemed like the majority of the people were engaged in what was going on during worship. You know, and I remember seeing that because I went to the back. Because sometimes during worship, I just go to the back, kind of just observe, I remember going to the back, getting on my knees and just seeing this. And I was like, wow. And I was like, this is different. This is different. And like you said, it really just impacts you because you have a frame of reference to be able to compare it to. Because I grew up in the church over here. So I kind of know how the church thing goes, especially when it comes to young adults in worship. And so seeing a young adult service over there really just challenged that. Like, hey, maybe you yourself, what are you doing during worship, right? Where's your mind? Are you engaged? So I kind of asked myself those questions. And so hopefully post, COVID, whenever we are able to get back in these settings, I'm speaking more in a corporate setting.
Yep.
Obviously by yourself, you do different things, but how was your worship in those corporate moments? Yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely think it speaks to like our priorities as far as within the church is like here in America, I definitely think we can get so easily distracted.
Yeah.
And that affects our time of worship with the Lord and being in his presence. And it's so cool that the Lord was able to give you that picture. Because not a lot of people here like have insight to that.
Yeah.
Like we only know like the American church
for sure
in a way, and it just kind of becomes normal of just like, oh, I mean, they're Christians, but like they don't really hunger for the Lord in like a tangible physical sense, as you can see. Like, oh, I mean, it's just all personal. It's all in their heart.
Yeah.
And things
the Lord
like
knows
that.
your heart, right?
Because it's funny. I think Francis Chan has a illustration where he talks about basically how worshiping the Lord, like the Bible says in multiple areas, like it's something where we should do it hands raised,
for sure,
into it and everything like that. And think of it as almost like flying in a way, to where you're a bird that's flying.
Yeah.
In terms of like that's what you're doing when you're worshiping is just flying. It's just a very blissful state, things like that. But then think of a bird just kind of sitting there trying to fly, just being like, oh, I'm just flapping my wings like in my heart.
Yeah.
And just like, oh, I'm worshiping God.
Bro, I mean, I think
in my heart.
That's such a good way of looking at it because I don't know who said that, but I always use that not that example, but the example of imagine people going to a Beyonce concert. If you want to go to a Beyonce concert, go. I don't really know. But imagine someone going to a concert of one of their favorite artists and just how engaged you are with what's going on. And then whenever it comes time to worshiping God, oh, it's just in my heart.
Yeah.
Right? So that doesn't make sense. Right? That shouldn't make sense. And so for me, I was like, yeah, so I wouldn't want to go to a concert and give my all, in that moment for whatever that is. But then whenever I'm worshiping God, it's like, God knows my heart.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a disconnect there. And so, pretty much what you were saying.
Yeah. And I mean, it goes towards something we were talking about beforehand as far as like how we know that we have faith is through works.
Yeah.
And I mean, works are expressed in a number of ways and things like that. And so like it's a sign to ourselves of like, is our faith true and everything like that. And so since we're kind of on the subject, I'd love to see what you learned during your conversations down there, just experience down there. But as far as the American culture, the American church, and just like the view that the Brazilian church has, like, on the American church, because it's something that the church all around the world has a different kind of perspective on the American church, the American culture, and everything like that. And so for me, I mean, I've been down to Peru. Like, I've seen different things there, but what was it like as far as in Brazil and everything like that?
Man, unfortunately, I feel like I didn't have enough of those conversations in regards to the American church, but more so American culture and how it's perceived over there. So I can speak to that.
Yeah.
I remember just having conversations because when you go to another country, as you know, you get curious because you want to see how the world perceives you, right? Perceives the country where you currently are at. And so I remember just speaking to different people, and one thing that I learned that just comes off the top of my head was everybody hates Chris. I felt like a majority of the people that I met loved Everybody Hates Chris. And I was like, why? And they just, I can't even remember the explanation they gave me, but they just enjoyed that show. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. What was the other one? My Wife and Kids. Just a lot of random shows that I would have not expected to have translated very well.
Yeah.
Translated very well. And so they really just, they just loved that. What else? Let me see what else I can speak. I don't know. I felt like with so for example, here in America, we obviously use the dollars. Over there in Brazil, the currency is REAIS. We would say reais, but that's not how you pronounce it, because I apparently learned that you don't pronounce the R, you pronounce it as an H, so it's reais, right?
Okay.
And so for me, that was about it's about a $1 to $4 exchange.
Okay.
So with the money that I took over there, I felt rich. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, I felt rich. So there was a lot of moments where I was like, wow, this is so different from what I know in terms of, like, even just the currency. But yeah, no, I mean, I feel like I should have had a little bit more conversation about the church and how they perceive the American church. I feel like I had just more conversation about just the two cultures and just seeing some of the difference there. And I'm starting to notice a lot that a lot of cultures are not like American culture.
Yeah.
In terms of the values. The values seem to be very, very different.
Yeah. What were some of the different values?
Man, I was speaking to one of my friends the other day in Brazil, and I actually FaceTimed her that I met over there. Just how family oriented they are. We've seen that same thing when we were in China. We've talked about the same thing whenever my family did the culture dinner.
Yep.
You kind of see this orientation towards the family where America is pushing more the individual.
Yeah.
And things like that. And so I find that very interesting. I find that very interesting. And just also how, for example, here in America, whenever you're like 18 years old, that's kind of when you leave the house. You go find your own way and things like that. But speaking to some of the people there, I was like, so how long do you guys stay in your parents' house until you get married or whatever? Whereas over here, we're even trying to run away at 18 or even earlier. So you can kind of just see how different those two things are. And I don't know how true this is, so don't take this as a fact. But a lot over there, I remember there was a lot of people took the metro. So I had to get on the metro. Nothing was in English, so I just had to find my way. But one of my friends told me that you can only drive a certain amount of days. Like your car, you can only drive a certain amount of days, right? So
For
I don't know,
fuel emissions and things like that?
Possibly.
Okay.
I don't know how they check that or how they would regulate that. But I remember having that conversation with somebody and hearing them say you can only drive a certain amount of days. I thought that was so strange.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, I'm like, well, who checks that? So yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure Rio is very, like, kind of packed in together.
Oh, yeah.
Like, very populated city. And so maybe it has something to do with that.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I love what you brought up in terms of just, like, having that curiosity whenever visiting other places.
Yeah.
Because I think that's something that's so good for us to embrace, to be able to just ask questions and just find out as much as we can about the people we're talking with. And I mean, like we saw that a lot, for example, like with Kobe, where he just had this unlimited amount of curiosity.
Yeah.
Like whether it was basketball, business, creativity, like whatever. And I feel like us here in America, and maybe I'm just speaking for myself, I don't know, but I have tended to lean less. I see myself leaning less away from that, or more away from that over the past few years as I've gone into adulthood, because I want it in a way to seem like I have it all together. So I don't want to ask like all these different questions to make it seem like I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And so I think that's such a good exercise for us to have, to be able to humble ourselves whenever we go abroad, and hopefully from there just like continue in that like posture of humility once we come back. And so as far as just the trip and everything from there, like what was some of either the experiences or lessons that the Lord taught you that you think really changed your perspective the most in terms of like how you're living your life here or on the Lord's character, priorities, anything?
Yeah. Man, jeez. I remember going to this place. I believe it's S.E. Cathedral.
Okay.
There was an area where I went there, and there was just a ton of people. Imagine like a downtown area and just packed with people. And I get off the metro, and as soon as I walk up to my right, there was this area where there was just a bunch of people that were homeless. And I'm just kind of walking. And before I left, my theist told me, him and Pedro, they're like, hey, so if you're going to go there, it's probably best not to take pictures with your phone just out and about. So that's part of the reason why I don't have a lot of pictures from Brazil, because one, I couldn't just take selfies all day, and two, I couldn't really find a lot of people to take pictures for me because I couldn't communicate with them, But yeah, I mean, I remember going there, and there was this section where there was a square that was outlined on the ground, and there was this guy who was preaching to people that would just walk up. There was probably like 15 people in that square, including him. And he was just going around preaching. I was like, what is this? Like, what's going on here? And he was doing that. And to my right, there was also another group that was doing the exact same thing. And I just sat there and I just stared at them the whole time. And after maybe 25 minutes, he stopped. Another group came up and they started doing the same thing. So I was like, this is really interesting. But in terms of just what the Lord, I feel like, was just speaking to me during my time there, you guys probably hear us using the word perspective a lot, and hopefully you don't get tired of us using it because it's really important. You just see people and you evaluate your life, right? You evaluate your life, you evaluate the things that you have, the things that maybe you don't have. You evaluate the opportunities that you have. You evaluate some of what we try to do here through these podcasts. Let me take this from this culture because I really enjoy this, so I can be a more fuller person, so I can be a person of understanding, and not just somebody who's of wisdom. So I'm not just somebody who's lived in America. Obviously, doesn't apply to me. Lived in America all their lives and they don't know anything.
Ignorant to things.
Yeah, ignorant to things. Exactly, right? If you've never left your own area code, for example, you're missing out on the world, right?
Yeah.
And so, man, really just a lot of practical things, because just seeing people, I originally am from Congo. And so whenever I moved in America, I had to do the exact same thing. And I've been doing that for 18 years now, right?
Yep.
Just examining and taking the world around me. And so whenever I go on these trips, specifically in Brazil, really learning to take what's going on around me, take that information, the story, right? Obviously, it's a lot, but our brain is able to remember a lot more than we can probably speak about, in certain moments. But yeah, man, I mean, just taking everything in, learning to take everything in. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things like subconsciously that we apply, I would say. Because, as far as perspective and gaining perspective on life, your faith, the world, like everything like that, I mean, there's multiple ways to do it. Obviously, one way is just reading, consuming information, videos, YouTube, whatever. But I firmly believe that like that can only take you so far.
Yeah.
And there's certain things that only experiencing different things can really do.
Right.
Whether that's good or bad. Like I know Tony Dungy has this example in one of his books of a hot stove, which we've all seen. Like his son wanting to touch a hot stove. And from there, basically, as many times as the dad can say, like, hey, don't touch that stove, like, you don't gain that perspective on, like, oh, crap, this really sucks.
Yeah.
Unless you actually touch it.
Yeah.
And so same thing on the world in terms of, like, whether it's, like, the conditions that people are living in or the values, different things like that. Like, there really are only things that you can gain from getting outside of your bubble.
I mean, just speaking about that, like something that we might not even think about, air conditioning, right? So I learned that not everybody has air conditioning there.
Yeah.
And that's like that a lot of places around the world. And I was like, what? No air conditioning? What do you mean?
You think it'd be absurd here.
Yeah, you almost could cause a riot. But also that's so interesting because like you here in America, you just expect air conditioning,
Yep.
And kind of learning that, hey, that's not always the case everywhere that you go. So yeah, I just remember that.
Yeah. And that's something that like we want y'all as listeners to receive out of this is like not just the perspective that we've gained through our experiences, but then as well just inspiring y'all to go create experiences of your own. Because it's something that as we've kind of thought about recently is like, any creative output or creative content that's there, like it needs to provide some kind of value. And some of that for us, like, is the perspective that we can give you without having to spend the money to go to these countries and everything like that. But then some of it is just obviously just to inspire you to go out on your own and trust the Lord in these situations, like which is something that you've brought up.
Yeah.
And really just get the most out of life. Because I mean, it's so cliche. Like we only have one life.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, it's a real cliche.
No, I mean, it is. Yeah. I remember Google Translate became my best friend while I was there because for a lot of the times I went around by myself just touring, seeing different things. And to speak to people, I brought out the Google app, Google Translate app, and I was able to speak to people through that. I remember one of the days I was coming back and I feel like my Uber drivers probably enjoyed me the most. By that, I mean, they enjoyed my time with them, even though a lot of times it was short, especially the ones that could speak English or were wanting to learn English, being able to see an American and just having that conversation with them. And I remember one of the guys, he could tell that I obviously couldn't speak Portuguese. Every time I got in the Uber, I was like, I'm sorry, no Portuguese. I just told him that because, and I mean, this is a little bit dangerous, so please don't do this. But I would speak into the Google Translate app, and then it would translate to Portuguese. He would hear, and I would hold the phone next to his mouth. He'll speak, and then I'll be able to communicate. And we did this for like 30 minutes, and I just remember the joy in his face. Because he had questions. Kind of like we're talking about that curiosity. He had questions in the same way I was asking him questions, So I was able to learn about the metro and just a lot of different cultural things through a lot of my Uber drivers. I met a guy who spent a couple years here in America, but he's Brazilian, so he went back and he was doing Uber and got to talk to him and learn a lot more things. So I feel like I wanted to learn as much as I could from different people that I was encountering. And something stupid that I was doing, you're gonna understand why it's stupid. Is this considered? I don't know if discrimination is the right word for it. Well, I'll explain and then we can see. Yeah, we can see what the proper word is for it. but I would try to figure out who could speak English and who couldn't.
Yeah.
Right? So through my deductive reasoning, I thought, okay, if somebody is young, maybe they learn it in school, and if they have an iPhone, maybe, I don't know why iPhone just stood out to me, because a lot of people had Androids, right? So I would look for young people with iPhones and I would approach them. Do you speak English? I don't know. It didn't work out all the time, but that was my...
no, man, that's not discrimination. Like,
I don't know what that is, but yeah. That's,
like, here's the thing. Like, I mean, I don't want to go too down deep into this combo, but I mean, we make judgments every day.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, the Lord doesn't want us to be judgmental, but He wants us to judge whether we want to get Chick-fil-A, or whether we want to get what's something else? Canes.
Yeah, that works. No, that works.
Popeye's chicken sandwich the regular chicken sandwich, which you always have to go to Chick-fil-A. Yeah. That's just me. But it's something where, I mean, we have to make choices. We have to value different things over other things. We have to make judgments. And as long as, those judgments aren't tearing people down and are based on, facts, like it's something that it's okay. Because if you think about it, gonna throw this example out there. I've thrown this example out to my family a couple times, but if you tell a girl that she's beautiful, guess what? You're making a judgment on her appearance right there.
That's true.
The only reason why she's okay with it is because it's a positive judgment.
That's true.
Whereas if it was a negative judgment, guess what? You're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
They just didn't like the result of your judgment. And so, like, obviously there's this balance of judgmental that we won't go down, right? Because that'd be a very long convo. Yeah, but yeah, it's funny that you just kind of brought that up. But kind of going to post trip, because you came back.
I came back on I believe it was on a Sunday,
middle of February.
Yeah,
and so you came back kind of right before Miss Rona came around.
Jeez, yeah,
and so it may have been impacted because of this quarantine and pandemic and everything. But what has it been like as far as life being home ever since the trip, and how that trip has maybe like impacted like your time back, whether it's things that you're struggling with, things that the Lord's been able to improve in your life, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I feel like coming back, I came back really a couple weeks right before the, Miss Corona really did her work. I mean, I enjoyed my time there. I really enjoyed my time there. So coming back, it's like refreshing when you go somewhere, and then when you come back home, you're like, wow, that was great. I had fun time there. And so being able to come back and just, like I said, just some of the things that you learn from another culture, and you're like, okay, how do I implement that without being too crazy? Because obviously you don't want people to think you're way too crazy. And so just, I don't know, I feel like I started looking at things from in a different light. We had a conversation earlier about learning things that are really important in life, and so kind of just, coming back and really just looking at things and be like, okay, what's really important? I remember coming back, and people obviously, they're curious too. They're like, how was your trip? And you start talking about it, and they're just staring at you. And then you have people that are really interested, and they're like, wow, that's crazy. I would have never known that. And I feel like, and I hope that through our conversations that people would feel like that too, like, wow, that's really interesting. I never knew that. And to my surprise, quite a few people that I work with, like one guy, his wife is Brazilian, so he goes there every year. So he's been there for the last like 10 years. So that was cool having a conversation with him. I got to speak to different people. One of them was like, yeah, I dated a Brazilian back in the day. So we got to have a conversation about that. But man, it's just, I don't know, I appreciated my time being there. And so if anything, in my heart, I was just really grateful, to have been able to encounter a lot of great people and see things that I hope I'm able to go there again one day. But if I'm not, I'm just excited to have been able to do that. So yeah.
Well, we're going there one day. Because I got that on my bucket list.
Guys. Yeah. So. I'm going back. Don't worry about it.
Whether it's a mission trip, whether it's just a dude's trip, we definitely going back there. But yeah, man. And so I guess I'll just kind of give you any just opportunity to give any just last words of like recap, encouragement, anything like that.
Yeah. I feel like the one thing I've probably said the most here, because usually we're the ones asking questions.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different for me, coming up with the answers. But I think one thing that stood out to me from a lot of the answers or responses that I gave is the curiosity. I don't really think that's something we really discussed a lot.
Yeah.
But I remember really being curious a lot during my time there. And so, I mean, I want to encourage us to be people that are curious, whether it be from our neighbors, people that don't look like us, to foods, to things we hadn't tried before. I hope that the Lord gives us like this curiosity about the world, right? Let us not just be people that are so, it's 2020. The world is becoming so connected. Let's try to find opportunities to be able to connect even more to people outside of what we know as our norm, So if anything, I just want to encourage us in that. I mean, because you guys already know we're going to be traveling because whenever this thing is done.
Second this quarantine is over.
Yeah, we're going to get on the plane.
Hopping on a flight.
Yeah. But no, I mean, I really just want to encourage that curiosity because I think after coming back from Brazil, for the first time, maybe in my life, I was like, you know what? I love traveling.
Yep.
That's the feeling that I really gained from that. Somebody asked me, "Are you an adventurous person?" I was like, "I don't think so," and because I'm thinking like going hiking, doing this and this and this and this, and then it hit me, like, dude, you were in another country by yourself with people you didn't know. Learning about life. If that's not adventure, then I don't know what is.
Yep.
So I was like, I guess I am. So I want to encourage us to let curiosity, in a good way, obviously, let curiosity bring us into more relationships, deeper relationships, into trying new foods, meeting different people, and really just expanding our worldview, just through that curiosity.
Yeah. And I mean, I think something that kind of hit me in that is curiosity could be an often overlooked element of childlike faith because children put everything in their freaking mouth. Yeah. They're curious.
Literally, yeah.
And so for us, like, it's something that we shouldn't ever be ashamed to ask questions.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm going to lose it.
Go, bro.
That was me over there asking we often say the dumbest questions, but that was me just asking questions that they excused me because I was a foreigner, right? To them, it was probably ridiculous. It was probably silly, but I really wanted to know. I was curious. I didn't know, so I asked those silly questions and, the people were gracious with me and gave me answers, but continue.
Yeah, but it's so good, man. And I'm really glad that you had a good time down there because I know going into it, you were super stoked about it.
Yeah.
Watching everything, like your stories, and then obviously having all the podcasts and everything afterwards was so cool because you held it down for us down there.
Yeah, I had to, man.
Made us go global.
Yeah, man, that's crazy.
so crazy. It's just so cool. But yeah, dude, I'm really glad that we were able to sit down and just kind of recap everything.
Yeah.
Hopefully this was a time for you to be able to process everything a little bit and just continue just to move forward, apply those lessons, everything like that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, y'all, that'll be a wrap for us today. Normally we would say right here, thanks for this guest for joining us. But thanks for Josue for answering questions rather than asking them.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll have all of our information down in the description if you want to support, our work here at Perspectives, whether it is the podcast, keeping this going, or as well, now that the economy is starting to reopen, we're definitely going to be doing a lot more local work rather than international work since we can't travel right now. And so if y'all want to support any of that or see any of the opportunities to serve around the Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, or Austin areas, definitely feel free to go to our Facebook page, go to our website. All of that information will be on there. As well, if you like this week's episode, please just subscribe, give us a rating, leave a comment, everything like that. You want to pray us out, bro?
Yeah, of course. Father God, we just thank you for this podcast, this platform, to be able to speak to different people. Lord, I just bless everyone that's listening. Lord, I just bless them right now. Father, I just pray just a curiosity to increase in our hearts towards the world around us. Lord, I pray for a curiosity towards people that don't look like us, that don't sound like us, that think differently than we do. Lord, I pray that you may help us to really be able to engage the world as we are in this generation where everything's becoming so connected. Father, I pray that we may have tangible experiences of just being able to meet different people, sit down, having conversations, and that we may just be able to get outside of our own little bubble at times. So Lord, I just pray your grace in that. I bless everyone that's listening, Father, right now in the middle of quarantine. Lord, you know their needs. Father, I just lift them up. I just pray over them. I pray over their families. Lord, we're just believing that you're with us, that you love us, and that your spirit abides with us. Lord, we thank you for Jesus and just the work that he accomplished on the cross. And we thank you in Jesus' mighty name. We pray. Amen.
Yeah. Amen. Well, good episode, dude.
Yes, sir.
Well, thank y'all for listening. Until next time, much love. God bless.
God bless.